Welcome back to the CMF Conspiracies podcast.
Yeah.
Today we're diving into a theory that might just ruin your childhood.
Ooh, okay.
What if Peter Pan,
Yeah.
the boy who never grows up,
Right.
is actually the villain?
It's a fascinating theory, and it's not just some recent internet fan fiction.
Oh, really?
There are hints of this darkness even in the original book by J.M. Barrie.
Okay, so you're telling me there's more to this story than pirates and fairies and happy thoughts? I'm ready to have my childhood illusions shattered.
Well, consider this.
Okay.
In the original Peter Pan book,
Yeah.
there's a line that suggests Peter might be eliminating the Lost Boys when they get too old.
Wow.
Barrie writes that when they seem to be growing up, which is against the rules, Peter thins them out.
Hold on. Thins them out.
Yeah.
That sounds a bit sinister for a children's story, wouldn't you say?
It's definitely open to interpretation,
Right.
but it does lend credence to the theory that Peter Pan might be more of a controlling figure than we initially perceive.
So the boy who never grows up might be eliminating anyone who dares to age.
Potentially.
That puts a whole new spin on the idea of never leaving Neverland, doesn't it?
Right.
And what does this mean for Captain Hook?
That's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Some believe that Captain Hook was once a lost boy himself.
Okay.
Someone who escaped Peter's control and is now trying to protect other children from suffering the same fate.
So instead of a swashbuckling villain, Hook might actually be a tragic hero.
Potentially, yeah.
That completely changes the dynamic of their relationship.
It does.
I'm starting to see why this theory has gained so much traction.
Yeah.
Are there any adaptations that explore this darker side of Peter Pan?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Let's take Once Upon a Time, for example.
Okay.
Now, for those unfamiliar with the show,
Right.
it's set in a world where fairy tale characters are real, but they're living in our world,
Right.
stripped of their memories.
Okay.
In this version.
Yeah.
Peter Pan is a straight-up villain, a creepy figure who kidnaps children to maintain his own youth.
That's definitely not the Disney version I remember.
No.
It seems like even the supposedly family-friendly adaptations can't resist hinting at this darker side of Peter.
It seems that way.
Even in the recent Disney film Peter Pan and Wendy,
Yeah.
we see glimpses of a less appealing Peter.
Yeah.
He's portrayed as stubborn and selfish,
Yeah.
quick to cast out any lost boy who challenges him.
Right.
It sounds like even Disney is acknowledging the potential for darkness in the boy who never grows up.
Yeah.
But why is this idea of a villain as Peter Pan so compelling? Why are we so fascinated by the possibility that a beloved childhood icon might have a sinister side?
I think it speaks to our fascination with exploring the shadows that lurk beneath the surface of familiar stories.
Wow.
It's about confronting the idea that things aren't always as they seem,
Right.
and that even the most cherished narratives can have hidden depths.
It's like we're peeling back the layers of Neverland to reveal a much more complex and unsettling world than we imagined.
Exactly.
But what about the original book? Is there anything in Barrie's writing style
Okay.
or the historical context
Yeah,
that might shed light on this darker interpretation of Peter Pan?
that's a great question.
Yeah.
And it's worth considering the societal anxieties of Barrie's time.
Okay.
The late Victorian and Edwardian era was a time of rapid change and uncertainty.
Oh,
There were anxieties about industrialization, social upheaval, and the loss of traditional values. Perhaps Barrie's portrayal of Peter reflects these anxieties,
okay.
presenting a figure who rejects the complexities of adulthood in favor of a perpetual,
Right.
yet ultimately isolating
Yeah.
state of childhood.
That's a really interesting point.
Yeah,
So Peter Pan might not just be a whimsical figure of escapism,
right.
but also a reflection of deeper cultural anxieties about growing up and facing the challenges of the adult world.
Exactly.
That makes this theory even more intriguing.
Yeah.
It's not just about labeling Peter Pan as a villain,
Right.
but about understanding the cultural and psychological factors that might have shaped his character
Mm-hmm.
and continue to resonate with audiences today.
Yes.
This is already making me rethink everything I thought I knew about Peter Pan.
Yeah.
But before we go any further down this rabbit hole,
Okay.
let's shift gears and look at how this darker interpretation of Peter Pan has manifested in a truly unexpected genre,
Okay.
horror films.
Now, this is where things get really interesting. There's an upcoming horror film called Peter Pan, Neverland Nightmare that promises to take this dark theory to a whole new level.
A horror movie. Okay, now I'm officially creeped out. I remember we touched on this earlier.
Yeah.
But what can you tell us about this film and the creative minds behind it?
Well, the plot details are being kept under wraps, but the title alone suggests we're going to see a very different side of Peter Pan.
I bet.
And the director, Race Frake Waterfield, is known for turning beloved childhood characters into nightmare fuel. He's the one who gave us Winnie the Pooh. Blood and Honey, remember?
Oh, right. The one where Winnie and Piglet go on a murderous rampage.
Yeah.
So it's safe to say this isn't going to be a feel-good Disney adventure.
Definitely not.
Okay.
This film seems to be tapping into a growing cultural fascination with subverting classic children's stories and exposing the darkness that may lie beneath their seemingly innocent surfaces.
It makes you wonder why we're so drawn to these darker reinterpretations. Is it just a morbid curiosity, or is there something deeper at play?
I think it speaks to a desire to confront uncomfortable truths, even in stories we associate with childhood and innocence. We're acknowledging that the world isn't always black and white, and that even our most beloved heroes can be flawed.
It's like we're growing up alongside these stories, realizing that the line between good and evil isn't always so clear-cut.
Yeah.
But what about the implications for us, the viewers? Does seeing Peter Pan as a potential villain make us question our own childhoods or the values these stories instilled in us?
It certainly challenges us to reevaluate our perceptions. Maybe it makes you question the messages we often absorb as children, like the idea that staying young forever is desirable.
Okay.
Peter Pan's story, especially when viewed through this darker lens, shows us that clinging to childhood can come at a steep price.
You're right. We often romanticize childhood as a time of carefree joy and innocence.
Right.
But as we mature, we begin to appreciate the complexities and challenges of adulthood and the growth that comes with them.
Exactly. Peter Pan, in his refusal to grow up, becomes a cautionary figure. He's trapped in a perpetual state of immaturity, unable to form meaningful connections or experience the full spectrum of human emotions.
It's like he's traded the richness and depth of adult life for a shallow existence in Neverland.
Right, and that raises an interesting question.
Yeah.
Is Peter Pan's inability to grow up really a magical gift, or is it a curse?
It's a question worth pondering.
Yeah.
Maybe true happiness lies not in avoiding adulthood, but in embracing the journey of life with all its ups and downs.
I think that's a valuable insight. Perhaps the real villain of the story isn't Peter Pan himself, but the idea that we can somehow cheat time and escape the natural progression of life.
So instead of fearing aging and clinging to the past, maybe we should focus on making the most of each stage of life and appreciating the unique experiences it offers.
That's a powerful message, and one that's often overlooked in our culture's obsession with youth and eternal beauty.
It's a reminder that growing up isn't just about wrinkles and responsibilities. It's about evolving, learning, and becoming the best versions of ourselves.
And perhaps that's the ultimate lesson we can take away from this deep dive into the dark side of Peter Pan. We're reminded that even the most fantastical stories can offer profound insights into the human condition.
I completely agree. This has been such a thought-provoking discussion. I feel like I've gained a whole new understanding of Peter Pan and the enduring power of his story.
It's a story that continues to resonate with us because it taps into our deepest fears and desires. The desire to stay young, the fear of growing old, the longing for adventure, and the allure of a world without rules. These are themes that are as relevant today as they were when Barrie first penned the story.
And the fact that we're still debating whether Peter Pan is a hero or a villain shows just how complex and multifaceted this character truly is.
He's a figure who defies easy categorization, and that's what makes him so fascinating. He embodies both the wonder and the darkness of childhood, the joy of freedom, and the potential for destructive selfishness.
So where do we go from here? How do we reconcile these darker interpretations of Peter Pan with the beloved childhood memories we may hold dear?
It's not about rejecting those memories or erasing the magic of the story. It's about appreciating the complexities, the layers of meaning that are revealed when we revisit familiar narratives with a fresh perspective.
It's like we're discovering a whole new dimension to Neverland, one that's both enchanting and unsettling.
And that's the beauty of a good deep dive. It challenges us to think critically, to question our assumptions, and to embrace the ambiguity that often exists in art and in life itself.
This deep dive has certainly done that for me. I'm left with a sense of wonder and a lingering feeling of unease. It's like a shadow has been cast over Neverland, and I'm not sure I want to see it disappear completely.
That's a fascinating thought, maybe. That shadow is an essential part of the story. A reminder that even in the most magical of worlds, darkness always lurks beneath the surface.
And maybe that's a truth we need to acknowledge, not just in fiction, but in our own lives as well.
Absolutely. The story of Peter Pan, with all its complexities and contradictions, can serve as a mirror to our own inner struggles, our own desires and fears, our own capacity for both good and evil.
It's a story that challenges us to confront our own shadows and to find a balance between the innocence of childhood and the wisdom of adulthood.
And perhaps that's the most valuable lesson of all.
Well said. I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive. As we wrap up this deep dive into the dark side of Peter Pan, I'm struck by the idea that maybe we've been looking at this whole villain thing the wrong way.
What do you mean?
Well, we've been exploring all these examples of Peter Pan as a manipulative figure, even a potential killer in some interpretations. But what if instead of judging him by our adult standards, we try to understand him from the perspective of a child?
That's an interesting perspective. Are you suggesting that Peter's actions, while morally questionable from an adult viewpoint, might make more sense within the context of Neverland's unique reality?
Exactly. Think about it in Neverland. The rules are different. Growing up is literally against the rules, and Peter, as the self-proclaimed leader, is tasked with enforcing those rules, even if it means making difficult choices.
So from Peter's point of view, he's not necessarily being malicious, but rather protecting the very essence of Neverland, a world where childhood reigns supreme.
Right, and his actions, while appearing cruel or selfish to us, might be seen as necessary measures to preserve the innocence and wonder of that world.
It's like he's the guardian of a fragile ecosystem, one that could be destroyed by the intrusion of adult realities and responsibilities.
And maybe that's why the story continues to resonate with us, even as we grow older. It taps into a part of us that yearns for a simpler time, a world without the burdens and complexities of adulthood.
It's a reminder that while growing up is inevitable, there's a part of us that never truly wants to let go of that childlike sense of wonder and possibility.
And perhaps that's the ultimate message of Peter Pan, to find a balance between the responsibilities of adulthood and the joy of our inner child, to navigate the real world while still holding on to the magic that makes life worth living.
I think that's a beautiful way to put it, and it's a message that's particularly relevant in today's world where we're constantly bombarded with pressures to succeed, to conform, and to grow up too quickly.
It's a reminder to slow down, to embrace the simple pleasures, and to never lose sight of the child within us, even as we face the challenges of adulthood.
Well said. And on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into the dark side of Peter Pan.
We've challenged our assumptions and hopefully gained a deeper understanding of this complex and enduring character.
It's been a fascinating journey, and I hope it's encouraged you to look at your own favorite childhood stories with a fresh perspective.
And remember, sometimes the most magical discoveries are the ones that make us question everything we thought we knew. Thanks for joining us on this adventure through Neverland.
And thank you for listening to the CMF Conspiracies podcast.
Thank you for joining CMF Conspiracies podcast. What do you think about the topic we covered today? Comment below with your thoughts on this subject. If you have a conspiracy you wish for us to deep dive into, please send your topic to our email address or leave it in the comments. Thank you again for watching. Like and subscribe for more content like this.